clear enough, if it's not blurred or like lacking. Yeah,
it's good.
Okay.
It looked good to me. So welcome everyone to SQL Friday. We are live on Teams and YouTube today. For 2 weeks we have missed the YouTube live stream, so happy to have it back. We have Arthur and Filipa with us today, and they will demonstrate how we can migrate from SQL Server to Microsoft Fabric, the how-to and the strategies and so on. I will leave it to you to present yourselves. So welcome, Arthur and Filipa.
Thank you
Happy
very
to have
much.
you here.
Thank you, Magnus. Hello, everyone. I'm Filipa. I'm a cloud solution architect in data and AI in Microsoft Dubai. And with me, I have my colleague Artur, who is a principal program manager in the CAT team for Fabric.
Everybody,
Would you like?
I'm a program manager, like Filipa said. I'm a program manager in the Fabric CAT team. CAT means Customer Advisory Team. Our workloads are just for Fabric right now. Each one of us has a different specialty. My area is the data warehouse space. I hope you enjoyed the session today.
Well, thank you very much, Artur. So for today, what we are going to talk about is a little bit on the strategies from migrating from SQL Server to Microsoft Fabric Data Warehouse. And for that, I will present the agenda for today, which is going to be a little bit on exploring what is Microsoft Fabric. Then we will compare the SQL Server versus Fabric Data Warehouse components. We will talk about the migration assistance for Fabric Data Warehouse. We'll talk about as well the roadmap and what kind of steps you can take for leveraging this knowledge more. So let's start on what is Microsoft Fabric. So I don't know the level of understanding you may have on Fabric, but I think it's always good to have a little bit of intro to the tool itself. So Fabric, as you have probably heard about, it's combining the best of Microsoft Power BI, Synapse Analytics, Data Factory components, and it creates software as a service platform with all the core workloads for different personas and different tasks. The tool has been announced roughly 2 years ago, and it has been in GA as well, almost 2 years as well. So Fabric here is going to empower every team in the analytics process with role-specific experiences that they need. So for example, data engineers or data warehousing professionals, data scientists, etc., they can feel right at home here. Right, so there are a couple of components that help them explore their work. In the analytics pane, which is what we are going to explore more today, we have a combination of 3 workloads. We have the data engineering, the data warehousing that we are going to focus today, and also the data science. So if we start thinking about the data engineering, it's going to enable authoring experiences on Spark, instant start with live pools, and also the ability to collaborate between notebooks and the experience here. If we talk about the data science, it's going to provide an end-to-end workload for data scientists to build AI models, for example, or to collaborate easily and try and deploy, manage, for example, machine learning models. And then finally, the warehouse. It will provide a converged lakehouse and data warehouse experience with industry-leading SQL performance on open data formats that we are going to explore a little bit later. Now, thinking about the compute engines and a couple of experiences on Fabric, all the Microsoft Fabric compute experience comes pre-configured with the OneLake technology. So if you think about, for example, the Office apps that automatically use organizational OneDrive, this is a good comparison. So all the experiences like data engineering, science, warehousing, Power BI, etc., they will use OneLake as the native store without extra setup required. So this means you can access OneLake using multiple languages, for example, PySpark, T-SQL, Custom Query language, and DAX and M language for Power BI. Then we have the shortcuts that provides data virtualization. They have direct access to supported data sources like ADLS, the Azure Data Lake Storage, Amazon S3 buckets, Dataverse, etc. And they enable easy data sharing between users and applications, again, without duplicating the data. So it's a great effort. Then we have the mirroring option, which has even more support with near real-time data replication directly into Fabric OneLake from sources like Cosmos DB, Azure Databricks, Snowflake, PostgreSQL Flexible Server, etc. So all of this combined in one single platform called Fabric. Now, the purpose of today's session is a lot around the data warehouse workloads. So we are going to focus specifically on this part of the puzzle, which is inside the data engineering parts. So on the Fabric data warehouse, we have, again, leading SQL performance and scale. We have here a separation between compute and storage. So it lets you independently scale both components. That's the secret sauce, I would say, of Fabric. And additionally, it also natively stores data, again, in the open Delta Lake format. So for example, contrarily to the SQL Server that has the database files, here the data warehouse in Fabric has the Delta Parquet files. So the data warehouse is going to allow you to achieve data platform goals with ease and cost efficiency as well. And it is built, this enterprise data grade data warehouse builds relational layers on top of the physical data, for example, of a lakehouse, providing a fully separate compute from storage that can scale, again, backed by SQL. And now, if we think about how this was reimagined by the Fabric team, the data warehouse world here is building a brand new product based on these 4 pillars that we see. So the first is that it's built for any SQL level SQL engineer, right? So for example, a citizen developer or a pro developer. And the second is that it's lake-centric database. So all data is in Delta, no proprietary vendor lock-in here. And then we have Fabric deep lakehouse integration. So you have an auto-generated SQL serving layer for every lakehouse that you create, and there are no node performance at any scale. So it's very easy for anyone to consume the data. And in the case of a warehouse, you have even cross-database querying support here across not just warehouses, but actually warehouses and lake, because again, the foundational technology is going to be one lake. So it's a great advantage for cross-database querying. Then it also comes with auto-generated dataset, which means you have something like a semantic model on top of this that can be used for reporting needs, right? So it's super easy to share and is as sharing, for example, a Word document with other user who has the correct permission. And of course, it's going to be an enterprise-ready platform, always governed by and secured by default, right? So we have here a component on how Fabric is going to work, but also how the data warehouse piece is so important. Now, if we think about comparing the SQL Server and the Fabric SQL data warehouse, looking for a little bit more, let's say, old school slide here, we do have the SQL Server types through history, right? So initially we had something very physical, an on-premises server, for example, like SQL Server, a physical machine, raw iron, where a lot of administration efforts were needed. And then it was higher cost as well, dedicated just for this. Then we virtualized it. We started having this on a private cloud through virtualized machines and appliances. And finally, IaaS came to picture. So the infrastructure as a service came, and we finally could deploy a SQL Server on a virtual machine, for example. Then we had the next part of the story on the PaaS service, right, where we could have Azure SQL MI and Azure SQL Database, again, virtualized databases here. And something was missing from here, right? Like we did not have yet the software as a service platform, right? So what was missing is exactly what Fabric brings to the picture, right? Something that is pre-provisioned by design without the need to install a server to configure this and even to manage it in a really granular way like we used to do. So Fabric here is quite useful and quite, it really puts the picture together for us. When we think about, you can simply create an instance, for example, start your new Fabric capacity, start a new instance of Fabric, then focus, for example, on the data warehouse and start a new instance of a data warehouse. And this is going to take care of the data management. It will be automated and self-managed for you. So it's quite a good lower administration and, of course, off-premises comparing to the previous IaaS and PaaS setup and the stages that we had before. Now, if we compare specifically SQL Server with the data warehouse in Fabric, the Fabric data warehouse is built on the SQL Server or Azure SQL engine. So it means that it will leverage the same functions that are available, right? So it will have some similarity. In terms of architecture and purpose, of course, the SQL Server was primarily designed for an OLTP workloads. It is a relational database management system. It would support, and it still supports, a wide range of applications, from small single machine applications to large internet-facing apps with a lot of concurrent users, whereas Fabric Warehouse is designed for OLAP workloads. So it is optimized for large-scale data warehousing, analytics, but also providing high performance for really complex queries across large data sets. If we think about scalability and performance, SQL Server would scale vertically, right? So you would add more resources like CPU, memory storage to a single server. It would support features like in-memory OLTP, the column store indexes, for example, to improve performance. Fabric Warehouse is going to scale most likely like horizontally, right? So it will distribute the data across the multiple nodes that exist, and it uses this distributed architecture to handle the large volumes of data and the complex queries in a very efficient way. So something like automatic scaling or distributing the query processing to enhance performance for you. When we think about data types or functions, SQL Server is going to support a wide range of these SQL data types and functions like scalar, table valued functions, star procedures, triggers, etc. Whereas the data warehouse is going to support a subset of these SQL data types and functions. And there are some limitations on certain functions and data types. For example, it will not support custom data types like nvarchar, and changing these types can also impact a little bit the consumption or the reporting downstream. When we talk about integration and ecosystem, SQL Server would integrate well with different Microsoft and third-party tools, including Data Factory, Power BI. It would support as well ETL processes and data integration. Fabric Data Warehouse is a part of the Fabric ecosystem, so it will include as well integration of data, data engineering, the data warehousing itself, the data science, real-time analytics, BI. It provides seamless integration with not just the Fabric components that it has on the ecosystem, but also external tools and services like Visual Studio Codes, Azure Data Studio, SSMS, etc., or anything that can actually connect to that SQL endpoint URL that you can generate. In terms of security and compliance, SQL Server offers comprehensive security features as well, like always encrypted, transparent data encryption as well, advanced auditing capabilities. And in the data warehouse, we have robust security features like object-level security, the dynamic data masking, RLS, CLS, also user and SQL audit logs, and of course, the Fabric workspace roles. So it's going to focus as well on data governance, access control, but even compliance with the end-to-end Fabric platform and ecosystem. In terms of cost and licensing, we know that the SQL Server license is typically based on the number of cores or servers utilized. It could be deployed on-prem or on the clouds, for example, as an Azure SQL Database instead. And Fabric Data Warehouse offers here a software as a service product, right? So it is a consumption-based pricing model as well. It's going to provide something a bit more cost-effective scaling and on the management, resource management side as well. So this is going to be reflected on the Fabric capacity sizing, and they ask you as well the consumption units of that capacity. And you can always check this a little bit more detail on the documentation of Microsoft for the cost and licensing and the sizing of the capacities. So in conclusion, the SQL Server is ideal for transactional workloads, applications requiring comprehensive RDBMS features, while the SQL Data Warehouse in Microsoft is optimized for large-scale data warehousing and analytics and provides high performance and highly integration and seamless integration with the ecosystem as well. I have one more slide before we jump into the great demo that Artur is going to show us, but this is just a little bit into the common features we have of SQL Server and Fabric Data Warehouse. So for example, if we look at the language feature, it supports T-SQL for querying, managing the data, both of them, of course. For example, on the data types, it will also support similar data types like int, varchar, datetime, float, for example, and also the DML statements on the data manipulation language, which is a difference, for example, from Warehouse and Lakehouse on Fabric, okay? Then if we think about the database features, we have the table management options as well available, like creating, altering, etc. And we do have the statistics also enabled for both of the services, right? Here, the difference is, for example, indexing is not going to be supported or partitioning on the data warehouse of Fabric, right? And the reason is it's a different engine, right? So it's a different engine that we have on Fabric from the SQL Server. It's based on Delta and Parquet. And so the Parquet files themselves, they're not only the data and statistics, they actually have an index itself, right? So these Parquet files are columnar oriented, right? So no support to traditional indexing like non-clustered or clustered index. And in order to actually achieve query performance, a couple of things can be done, including, for example, updating your statistics frequently after loading and having them accurate as well. When we talk about compression, we slightly adjust here the idea for data compaction, right? So it will be optimized in Fabric for optimizing the read operations, right? So it will consolidate smaller Parquet files into fewer or larger files. So it actually compacts those files. And the compression in SQL Server helps reduce the size of the database. So it's kind of like a parallelism here. They both save storage space and they improve performance, of course. In terms of security features, I named a few before, but we do have OLS, CLS, row-level security, DDM as well, and the auditing on both platforms as well here. And finally, integrating with ecosystem here, we have a bunch of SQL tools that are very easy to integrate with any of these tools, and also support for JSON data, for processing JSON data. So both of them can support storing and querying JSON, both SQL Server and the warehouse on Fabric. And then we have the graph processing here, where SQL Server and warehouse in Fabric support graph-based data model and queries, so they can access a graph database. All right, so after this long introduction, I will hand over to Artur on our migration assistant, which I think is what brings you all of you here in an Easter Friday, in a Good Friday, on the migration assistant we have for Fabric Data Warehouse. All yours.
Okay.
Artur.
Okay. Thank you, Filipa. Let's just hold on to this slide just for a couple of moments more. This was a very good but high-level introduction on all the Fabric capabilities, all the components, and especially the data warehouse space. But the idea of this session is to show you how you can migrate from, for example, your SQL Server or your on-prem database into the Fabric data warehouse in the most simple and transparent way. When we talk about migrations, we always need to worry about the things that we have on our source system and the things that are going to be potentially different on your target database. One of the examples that Filipa gave was, for example, not all data types that exist in SQL Server are supported in Fabric Data Warehouse. That doesn't mean we cannot migrate. Means that we need to understand what we have on our source, understand what is the data type mapping that exists in Fabric, and choose the best way for us to do that movement. The migration assistant that I'm going to show, we have a recording just as a backup, but I'm going to do for the next few minutes, I will be doing a live demo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all the processes to move a system from my own laptop, a SQL Server that I have in my own laptop, and move it across into a Fabric data warehouse and on Fabric. So let's start by looking at what we have here. The tool that we are going to be seeing today, this is one of my tenants. The tool that we are going to see today, it's going to be the migration assistant. The version that I have here on my laptop on this demo, it's still the private preview version. The public preview version should be available in the next couple of weeks for any of you to test out. It's completely free. You can just go there and use it. Once you go to that, you connect to your Fabric workspace, you will see a button called Migrate. This will be the entry point for the entire migration process, and you don't need to create anything right from the beginning. This tool is going to have several steps. First, it's going to handle the table schema and DML code from the SQL Server, going to translate it to something that is compatible with Fabric and works with Fabric. Then it's going to help you to troubleshoot the rest of the code that was not automatically translated, that needs your input in order to be corrected. Wondering if you background is no. This is actually my office. These are my companions in the back.
We can hear the birds.
You can hear that?
The birds.
So translating the schema and code from your source database, help you through the troubleshooting process. There's also a step that will help you to move the data across from your system to the new Fabric data warehouse. And finally, it has a step that will help you to point the existing artifacts from your SQL Server on-prem to your Fabric data warehouse. This is where I did this introduction just because I want to talk about two areas about the preparation of the migration. There are many scenarios many options that we can use to do the migration, but we are focusing on this tool is going to focus on one specific scenario, which was there are customers that decide to move. The first thing that moves is going to be the data warehouse. Then that's one process. And there are others that say, I want to start using Fabric, but I'm not comfortable on moving my data yet, my ETL, all those things. But I can, for example, put my Power BI reports, my data consumption layer on Fabric. And then later, if everything goes well as I expect, then I'm going to move all the other components. So this tool is going to focus on that particular perspective, which is a customer move their reports into Fabric workspace, everything is already working. And when finally at the end, they decide to move the data across, the last step of this migration assistant is going to be to actually redirect all the connection strings from the old system that was on-prem to the new system so that you can, once you finish the process, everything is working, your platform is working, and potentially you won't have any downtime or impact on your system. But I've talked already too much about theory. Let's start looking at what we have here. So like I said, we have this button here. Once we reach the public review, should happen in the next couple of weeks, you should be able to see this without any issues, without any other action. But if you want to try it out today and you don't see this button migrate here, you can add this flag that I'm going to put in the chat. It's called & Fabric migration equals 1, and it will be able. You will be able to, once you refresh, you'll be able to see the migrate option. So one thing important is whenever we're going to start this migration, we must migrate to an empty object, to an empty warehouse. This is why the migrate assistant will create a data warehouse for you so that you can make sure that you have all the process clean, straightforward. I'll go here. I'll just press the migrate button. It's going to open a new window. This window is going to show you the options that are available today. Right now, we have this migration model for analysis services, Azure analysis services. If you want to move it across, it will help you through the process. And also the one that we are focusing on this session is going to be the data warehouse migration. Currently, the version that I have here only supports DACPack because the approach here was not, most customers will not allow access from the internet, for example. So the solution to overcome this was to just use the DACPack as an entry point. But in the near future, we are going to see more migration models available here and also extensions on the ways that we can migrate our data to Fabric data warehouse, including live connections, all those things. But this will be available in the future releases. So let's start here. Let's start with the DACPack. So it's going to open a wizard for me. and it's going to say my first objective is going to be to copy the metadata, set up the new warehouse, and then go from there. So I'll just press next. It's going to ask me for a DAC pack. For those that don't know what DAC pack is basically a compiled database project. The easiest way for us to create this DAC pack, it's for example, you can use Data Studio or VS Code. Remember that Data Studio will be discontinued next year, but you can still use it. Everything that you do here, you can do on VS Code. I'm just going to use Data Studio just to simplify the process. You just connect to how to create this. You connect to your system. In this case, it's my local SQL Server. I chose one database. I'm going to press right-click, and then I'm going to have create database, create project from database. What this is going to read is going to extract all the data into a set of files and folders inside of my computer. So I'm going to call this project demo SQL Friday demo. I'm going to choose a location. Friday. Let's see if I have the right place. Yeah, SQL Friday. I have the folder here, and then I'm going to choose the type of structure that I want for my database project. I'm going to choose literally. I want to bring everything. I want the folder separated by schema, and then inside of the schema, all the objects related to that specific schema. And the default for us is to use the new SDK style project. If you are interested in knowing more about these features, you have this link here with the learn more. It will take you to the documentation page, and you can start from there. So I've defined where I'm going to, the database project name, where am I going to write it, and I'm going to start the process. Right now, it's going to extract all the metadata that I have on my database, and is going to start writing things here on the folder. So it's now, it just wrote everything. Since it's the new folder, it's going to ask me if I trust this folder or not. I'm going to say yes, and then I can see here my database project. If I go to my folder, I see that all the folders are per schema. In this case, I have all the tables here. If I go to other folder, I will see a different, this case has store procedures. Everything on my database is here, but I don't have yet that DAC pack structure. How do I create that file? Is I'm going to go here to my database project. I'm going to do right click, and I'm going to create build. This is basically going to compile the solution and create that DAC pack file that I'm going to use in my migration. So once this is created, I'm going to have here. Let's just wait for this thing to finish. Creating a model, loading the references, going to do all the steps. That at the end is going to say, okay, I had no errors. I compiled everything. I do have a few warnings. We'll take a look at those later. But if I come here now to my bin folder, debug folder, I do have a DAC pack file here. That's the one that I'm going to use as an input for my migration. I just go here, do a copy as path. Now I'm going to pass back to my migration assistant, and I would do choose file. I'm going to paste the file, the path of the file, and it's going to upload that file into the system. Once I press next, right now he just uploaded the DAC pack file with my database information there. So now it's going to start the process itself. I will have to create a new data warehouse for this. So I'm going to call it SQL Friday DW. Is going to tell me what he's going to do before he starts. He's going to use a DAC pack file as a source. It's going to run, this is the workspace, and this is the warehouse it's going to create, and I'm going to start my migration process. First step that I'm going to have here, it's in fact to create an empty data warehouse. The system is taking care of everything for you so that you don't have to worry. And in a few seconds, we are going to have our warehouse created. Done. Okay. And now I have it created my data warehouse and opens the rest of the wizard. So it translated the code, and now I have here my summary. So I can see here that the metadata summary is here. These are the objects that were migrated, 39 of 64, and these are the objects I need to fix, which are 25. So the first thing that he shows me is the summary of the things that he was able to do automatically. You don't need to worry about, and the things that you need to look for yourself. So when we go here, we have the copy metadata step that was completed, and now we go into the problem fix section. I'm going to put this a bit bigger here because we want to show this better. What do we see here? We see here a list of objects that had some issues, had some things that he was not able to correct automatically, and there's already a priority. This list is ordered by the impact of that object. For example, if that object generates dependencies for others, if I start with the other objects before fixing this, I'm going to have more problems. So he does the analysis on all that entire dependency hierarchy and decides what are the first objects that I should take a look. For example, this is a table dimension, and he's telling me, first of all, you have everything on the changes that were done on the original code, and now it's going to tell me that there's something here that I don't know. We know that custom data types don't work, are not supported in Fabric. That doesn't mean it's not possible for us to migrate. But I have the code here, and I have an option now that says fix my queries. So I can actually go here, fix the query errors. It's going to review the code again. It's going to suggest a change for my code, and it's going to tell me, do you agree with this solution? So for example, autofix was to change sys geography that is not supported and replaced it with varchar. Okay, perfect. It's a good solution for me. I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to run. If there are no things wrong there, because there might be something else down the code, he's going to work on that. As we can see here, we had 25. Now we have 24 things that we need to fix. So I'm going to go to my next one that has this button here. I'm going to close this window. I don't need it anymore. I can either go back to the list, or I can press the next button here, this button here, this arrow to go to the next problem. I'll just go here to fix problems again. I have another table that has a similar situation. This time is the geography. I'm going to do the same thing. It's done. It fixed the error, and it told me, hey, this is not supported. So I changed the data type, and I am going to run the deployment. The table is there, and then automatically it goes to the next code. Here we are going to, like I said, we are going to look into all the items that we have there, and the numbers are still going to decrease. Okay, when we go back to the main page, the process here would be now to go on all the items, make sure that you had all the issues fixed. There are things that can be resolved directly here. There are things that, for example, cannot be handled here, have to be recoded. For example, if you want to migrate the cursor that you had on your SQL Server, cursors are not supported in these types of environments. So if the fix my code doesn't work, you'll need to rewrite your cursor, for example, to use a while or to use a different code structure to be able to fix this. So let's assume that I would had fixed all my problems. The next step for me would be to copy my data. And the recommended way there are several ways for us to approach this requirement. The recommended way from the wizard is exactly to use the copy job. And basically what is going to do is it's what's going to do for you, it's going to create a copy job. that will allow you to connect to your source, whatever that is, and from that and target the Fabric data warehouse that you just created and deploy the code there, and that is going to go with all the steps. This version here will not allow me to complete the process, but I can show you the steps. The public preview version that's going to be released on the next couple of weeks is already supporting the on-prem data sources. This is something related to the version that I'm using right now. Basically, you say I'm going to connect to my SQL Server database. You're going to define where is your SQL Server, how to connect there. If you're connecting to a VM, potentially you can connect there directly. You might need to open a firewall port or something. But since I'm connecting to my on-prem system, I would need to use my own on-premises data gateway then to be able to access that data. Once I finish this wizard, it's actually going to copy all the tables that I choose from my SQL Server on-prem to my Fabric data warehouse, and the data will be available there. So when I go back to my data warehouse, if I go to the main page, so I fix the problems, I copy the data, and then I would have the reroute connections. This is the process that I was telling you about. There are many customers that decide, I have my system, I want to start playing with Fabric, testing out things, see the advantages, the flexibility that I have, but I don't want to move my ETL or my data yet, so I will put the presentation layer on Fabric and start working from there. It's a perfectly common scenario. So for those situations that you already have your reporting layer there, your presentation layer, or other systems that are consumers of the data from your source database, once you finish this migration, you can actually go here, and it's going to give you the option to redirect the data sources from your source system to your brand new Fabric data warehouse, so that you can continue the usage of that presentation layer without having to do any extra work. There is still one thing missing from this migration step, which would be the ETL. Okay, many customers have SQL Server integration services, or they're using Azure Data Factory, or they're using Informatica, or they're using Data Stage, or they're using whatever other tool for that data transformation in data refresh. Those are different approaches that we need to look into the migrations. So this was just focusing on the data warehouse space. If you're talking about, I have Azure Data Factory and I want to use it against the Fabric DW, you can do that also. There are several approaches available. They are fully documented. There are new things coming. Some of them already in previews and available, like, I already have my Azure Data Factory ecosystem. I have pipelines, I have data flows. How do I quickly use that existing infrastructure with Fabric? Well, you can actually have something called a Data Factory mount, where you can use your existing Azure Data Factory and pointing it directly into Fabric, and you keep using from there. But there are also other approaches for the migration of the integration space. I would say that this would be a good topic for a separate session, but the documentation is available. Filipa has some links on the PDF, and we will share the PDF, right? This is going to be shared later, so you can have access to the demo, to the presentation, and also the links and URLs for everything that we have here. Okay, so next step is going to be presentation from Filipa again. Let's talk about the roadmap. What is now here available and what is coming in the near future.
Yes, thank you so much, Artur. That was a very cool demo. And I think it really overcomes a lot of issues we had before on migration. Especially, I like the fix the problem parts, where it just highlights exactly what are the issues that you need to act on very quickly. And I like how Copilot also helps us fixing that. So pretty cool. Thank you, Artur. So we are going to talk a little bit of the roadmap and some next steps before we wrap the session. So in the roadmap, just announced very recently in the previous FabCon early this month, There were some pretty cool features like the result set caching right now in public preview. We do have asynchronous transcoding. Of course, we do have this migration assistant tool that Artur has been demoing for us very kindly, that it's rolling out already for some of you. Don't forget the small part of the URL that you can add that Artur shared, which is pretty cool to give it a try. And then a couple of other things like the incremental stats refresh coming shortly, the proactive stats refresh as well. Pretty interesting custom SQL pools, which is a very interesting concept when you're thinking about customizing the own sizing of the pools on your warehouse. Also coming soon in private preview, so you can access that link if you want to get access to it earlier. And then, of course, it will be under improvements and the warehouse snapshots and the data clustering as well. So a couple of updates that were already there on the March block for data warehouse, because we do have in Fabric a release every month of the different engines and the different workloads of Fabric, one of them, of course, being the data warehouse. So you do have a specific blog you're probably quite aware of explaining what are the new features. So AI functions in the data warehouse was just announced this month, the previous month, sorry. The Fabric user data functions, the Scalar SQL user-defined functions, the new developer experience in Fabric Warehouse, and a little bit more like the open row set on JSON data and the SQL audit logs as well. So bear in mind that most of these features, when they roll out, they are in public preview. So of course you have to keep an eye on how they perform, and it's expected sometimes not to be exactly the same experience as a generally available feature. And a couple more things that are coming are also not just all of this that are here, but also the show plan XML in Fabric Data Warehouse, also in preview, and introducing the SQL audit logs and the ints in Fabric Data Warehouse as well. Artur, do you want to add anything from the CAT team?
We've been pushing a lot of. We've been doing a lot of work also with the community, with the social in the social media. For example, we have a channel on Reddit for those who are not aware. That is specific. It's called Microsoft Fabric. You can go there. You can ask questions. There are frequently events happening, like I want to do an Ask Me Anything session, to where we bring, for example, the managers from engineering, like we did a few weeks ago, where you can literally put your whatever question you have there, and you're going to get an answer from the people that are actually building the features and collecting feedback and all those things. We also have a good presence on the LinkedIn. We have been sharing pretty much every day posts and blogs and information and answering questions via LinkedIn. So if you need anything, LinkedIn is a very good source for you to get more information. But the best place for you to start, it's a very great page called docsmicrosoft.com/fabric. Everything on Fabric documentation is based out of there. And if there's something that you want to ask, there's also the option for the feedback. If you don't want to do this and you want to ask a question directly from us, feel free to ping us on our social media. We'll be happy to help with whatever question you have. So this slide is actually for those who are starting today, or for those who don't have a lot of didn't had a lot of contact with Fabric. This aka.ms/try Fabric, it's the perfect place to start. It's going to give you access to a Fabric trial. It's a 60 days free Fabric trial. You will have all the things, all the features, all the engines, all the capabilities available there for you to test, for you to try, for you to explore. And then if you want to go further, you will have more steps that you can take. Filipa, do you want more things?
Definitely, that was it. I moved to the slide because you were going ahead on how present we are, but that's perfect. So yes, definitely the learn slides, the learn path that we have on Microsoft. So, and also we added here the tool, the specific migrate with the assistant migration for the warehouse, which is quite good for checking again what kind of steps you will need. We did not cover like what kind of challenges you have in the migration, which is also very obvious, right? In terms of like security or like integration or even like compatibility of your movements between your SQL Server or another Azure SQL Database, for example, to the warehouse in Fabric. But that's definitely a very good article to read, and the documentation has everything you need as well. So yeah, I think that's a wrap. Any questions that you may have? Anyone online?
And that goes also for the YouTube watchers. There are a few online. So chat is open on YouTube stream as well. So just type and I will relay it. Thank you for the presentation. And yes, as I said before we started the live stream, when I played with migrating an on-prem data warehouse to Fabric data warehouse, there were some missing pieces, but because that was half a year ago, and I like the migration assistant a lot, and as you said, Filipa, the co-pilot is. I mean, anyone who is really skilled with writing T-SQL code is probably the person doing this. Of course, you can do all the groundwork of changing and look up, okay, so geography is not supported, what should I use, etc., etc. But having the co-pilot help you do that, and then, of course, look through the code before you run it. But that always goes with the co-pilot, of course. But I like it, and it looks very, very... It looks a lot better than it did half a year ago. And also looking at the things that are currently in public preview, or once they GA, because I know a lot of clients won't use preview features, etc. But there are a lot of things that has been GA'd and that will be GA'd in Fabric warehouse space. So,
and the thing is, I've been focusing on migrations for the last more than 10 years. Yeah. And there are always surprises. No matter how well you prepare, there's always a piece of legacy code that no one remembers that's going to pop up. It's going to break a lot of stuff. So we always need to prepare. These migration assistants, the session was on the Fabric migration assistant specifically, but there are more solutions out there available from partners, from other companies that we partner with, and we've been working with all of them to get this to facilitate the transition. But there are always things before we think about I want to migrate. We need to prepare. We need to know the target. Does the target product works in a way that's going to solve all my problems? Is it going to be faster? It's going to be cheaper? It's going to be more flexible? Is there anything that I cannot do today on-prem or my current system that will bring me, if I move there, it's going to unblock those scenarios? There are a lot of things that get unblocked simply by doing the lift and shift, okay? But there's always the space for something that is where you can potentially get the most value, which is the modernize. When we're talking about on-prem systems, we are limited to the storage and to the CPUs and to the memory and to the network and to the integration with the other systems inside of your company. When we move into Fabric, suddenly we have a huge catalog of products and features that completely integrate with each other that we can use to do better things. Mm-hmm. If I have my warehouse or my database or my data inside of Fabric, I can use pretty much any of the engines available inside of the Fabric ecosystem to read the data, to work with it, to process it, to extract insights. Just by having the database there, everything becomes more easy for us to expand and to build new features and bring new value to our workhouse. Yeah. Again, it all depends on how far we want to go. And
yeah, I can add something as well, a little thought from my side. Like you said very rightfully, Magnus, that like 6 months ago, even a little bit longer, it's been an ongoing ask we have from customers on having this migration from on-prem to Fabric. And it's quite a hassle because we are talking of very, very old systems, like with over 20 years of data sometimes, which is probably not a great practice. But we do have this request. And it was kind of a headache to tell a customer, like, okay, look, we'll have to think it through, right? Like we have to plan it very well. We have to plan, for example, this downtime periods. We have to plan the moment where your team cannot access the database and they will complain. There is a bunch of things here. The sizing specifically, then we would have to tell them, look, maybe your data model is not the best and we have to revisit that too because, well, it's a lot of data in the last time that you have in the last 20 years. So all of these conversations, they kind of demotivated as well for trying a new experience that it's so rich, like Artur is saying, right? So we do have something in cloud, we have something that is self-managed, like, and it offers a lot of potential of integrating with a lot of technologies, right? Not just Microsoft, but a lot of technologies as well. So it's kind of that motivational when you have to tell a customer so much work and expand on each part very thoroughly. And here, like, this is a very, very quick example of how we can even test like a development database or something like from dev on-prem to Fabric. And the migration assistant is very, very useful. But also bear in mind that every month or even week, we do have updates on Fabric. So it's very quick how people also come together in the community and think thoroughly on something, and how also the product team typically like prioritizes this because it's such a request for so many customers. So I would say it's, again, just like Power BI was, it's still a community tool, right?
Yeah, and I think I have to be like upfront. I'm not really a Fabric professional because I work mostly with the on-prem SQL Server systems. But the things that I've been most impressed with is I love Power BI, and if I can get my data model to the place where I can use direct lake mode from Power BI, so that I can combine both writing T-SQL for some reports and use Power BI without having to do the import of data, which is, I mean, frankly, for a really large data warehouse, that's going to be a lot of time and resources spent on doing import. But if I can use direct lake from Power BI, that's the one thing that impresses me the most. Yeah. With this, and to have, but then of course there are limitations to be able to use direct lake mode. For example, you can't have multiple foreign keys on from the same table, etc. But on the other hand, if Fabric Data Warehouse is your kind of gold layer in your medallion architecture, you probably don't need those foreign keys to be there in the database anyway. So, but for an on-prem SQL Server guy, that is like it takes some convincing to get an old DBA like me to say, well, just skip the foreign keys. You don't need them because you already know the data is good, etc. Because it's your gold layer. Yeah. So I think it's both a technical challenge to do migration projects, but it's as much a cultural thing to get old geezers like me to change my mind, which is often in an organization with a lot of tech people, that's what takes probably more time and resources to convince people that, hey, this is not dangerous.
Yeah, it's like you said, if you know your data, if you know your ETL process, if you know how your business refreshes data and handles changes and all those things, it's not really a problem. But you need to know your model, because although you can put the table constraints in the Fabric warehouse the same way that like we did back in the previous version with Synapse, they are still not enforced. They are not enforced because of the distributed architecture. Also because this is not supposed to be an OLTP system where we require all those constraints to be implemented and enforced. it's a different approach. Approach here is going to be, yes, you can do that same validation, but you need to rebuild or adapt your refreshing process to handle that data integrity, to that data references, those to guarantee the data quality. It's still there, but it's in a different layer, being handled not at the database level, but at the ETL level, which it's something that we've been doing for many years. When I started Data Warehouse in a long time ago, back in before 2000s, we already had that conversation today, and I still have data warehouses that I was involved 20 years ago, and they're still running, and they are moving into the cloud ecosystem, and it's a modernization. We need to adapt and figure out what is the best way to get results, to get the accurate results, the one truth out of our systems. But systems change, so we also need to adapt sometimes the models to get the results that we need to have. But again, migration strategy and planning and problems, it's a full week just to discuss the list of things that can happen. But yes, we can have more conversations on the migration approaches if you want to.
But that's kind of the charm, I guess, with working with old systems.
Yeah.
That you will find things that if I only look at T-SQL code, I will find things that I find kind of unbelievable. But they are created that way for a reason, and that reason could be like the person writing this 25 years ago didn't know better.
Yep.
Or the person writing this 25 years ago actually knew better than I do today because I wasn't there at that time. There is a reason for many decisions.
They had not enough. They didn't have enough memory to run processing a different way, or the CPUs were slow. They had to adapt the code and break it apart or make something different because lack of resources or lack of time. I'm very used to find some very exotic and very crazy things when I'm running migration analysis. I've seen some very, very strange things out there.
But I mean, our job wouldn't be interesting.
Of course.
Strange things. So I don't see more questions. I see Alexander says that I'm not alone in such thoughts, and I think he's referring to me and Alexander being old geezers, and
same here.
I want to thank you both for coming and for doing it on Easter, and I want to thank everyone who joined both the live stream on YouTube and the Teams call. And if you want to go back to rewatch it, I put the link to the YouTube stream in the chat here, and I will also post it on social media later on. So